Hello, friends, and welcome to a spooktacular episode of Unsolved Ramblings. Happy Halloween! This week, I wanted to stay with the spirit of Halloween and share some of the creepiest stories I found from all over. Grab your hot chocolate, your popcorn, and a blanket. Settle in for some scary tales. Do you check the backseat of your car after dark? How about under your bed? Do you think the boogeyman awaits you in your closet? Are you afraid of ghosts? No? Good, because I've got some ghostly tales to keep you awake tonight. The Ghostly Truck Stop. On a very cold, snowy January night, two military men are traveling alone together from North Carolina to Indiana. One of the men planned to get married at the end of the trip. As they are about to reach Indianapolis, they realize they are about to run out of fuel and don't have any cash between them. Quick on their toes and not wanting to panic, one man blurts out, "Let's find a truck stop. Someone will help us." Growing up with a father in the trucking industry, he knew that was their way. Help anyone in need. Driving along the interstate in a snowstorm, most places were shut down. They decided to exit the highway and began looking for a place to stop on the back roads. After about another 15 miles, they find a very quaint truck stop with only one truck in the lot. The truck windows were blacked out and there were no distinguishable markings on the truck at all. Not thinking much about it, they pull in and head inside. This truck stop has a small diner, and the only occupants are a waitress, a cook, and the driver that they only assumed belonged to the truck outside. The two men sat down. The driver bought them some coffee, and the three began chatting about what they were doing, where they were headed, and what prompted them to stop. The truck driver loans them $20. They fuel up, thank the man profusely, and head on their way, claiming they will be back to repay the driver. True to their word, they head back to the truck stop after reaching Indianapolis and getting the cash. At about 10 a.m. the next morning, they pull into the truck stop they visited the night before. Confused and with chills running down their spines, they realize this truck stop is boarded up and appears to be abandoned. There happens to be a police cruiser in the parking lot. Unsure of what the heck to think, they park and get out of the car to speak with the officer. Once they were done explaining the whole story to the officer, he smiles and then chuckles and says to them, "Sounds like you met the ghost of three." Not believing that explanation for 1 second, they said no. They spoke to the driver for 30 minutes. He loaned me $20. He used the gas pump outside. This is impossible. They were just there. Once more, the policeman smiles and then chuckles before replying, "I'm sorry. This place has been closed for at least 25 years. The Mother Ghost. In a charming old farmhouse in the middle of the Midwest, two young girls are living with their family, enjoying their childhood, exploring all the dusty, musty corners of this old home. Recalling their childhood, the two young girls remember their favorite thing about the old house, the friendly ghost that also occupied the residence. Or so they believed it was friendly. The girls would often wake up in the morning to a fresh cup on their nightstand that had not been there the night before when they had fallen asleep. The girls and their family never worried about these incidents as it seemed so motherly and nurturing, making sure they did not wake in the night thirsty. One of the items that was original to the home was a very large wooden chair they kept in the corner of the living room. The ghost would often move this chair while the family were preoccupied with watching TV or playing games. Too many times to count, the ghost would move the chair from the corner all the way to the middle of the room. Again, not raising too much alarm, they assumed the ghost just wanted to be a part of their family too. That was until later, when the two young girls had grown up and had long since moved away from the old farmhouse. One of the girls found a newspaper article pertaining to the very first occupants of the home. In the newspaper, she reads that the woman who used to live in the home poisoned her children with poisoned milk before putting them to bed and then hung herself in a living room from a beam. In the article, there's a picture of the living room of the home, complete with a woman hanging in the center. Underneath her, laid over on its side, is that old wooden chair in the center of the room. The last ride. The summer season is always one to look forward to for so many reasons. Swimming, camping, the sun, the 4th of July, and as always, the county fair. This summer was like most summers for Charlie. The only exception was he was now old enough to get a summer job. When the fair came to town, an opportunity opened for Charlie that allowed him to work with the carnival rides. Charlie was hired to operate the Ferris wheel. This excited Charlie so much. He'd always loved the fair coming to town. All the lights and the noise were so exciting, and this year he got to be a part of it all. On the first night of the carnival, it was so busy, people everywhere. But at the end of the night, Charlie's about to shut down the ride, and an 8-year-old boy steps up and says, "One for the Ferris wheel, please." Charlie looks around at the deserted rides and replies, "Where are your parents?" The little boy hands Charlie the ticket and takes his seat without saying another word. After the ride is over, Charlie realizes there is no one in that seat. Running to his boss to tell the story, and after Charlie's done, Charlie's boss just smiles and says, "Oh, that's Thomas," then reaches down into a trunk and hands Charlie an old newspaper clipping with the headline that reads, "8-year-old boy falls to his death on Ferris wheel." Depicted in the picture is the same boy Charlie had seen. Chucky's brother. Marty is a little girl with big dreams. She's obsessed with Edgar Bergen and his dummy sidekick Charlie. So much so, she begged and begged her father for a ventriloquist doll. When the pair are out shopping one day in the 90s, Marty recalls her father stumbles across a doll while wandering around a small magic shop that was located outside Santa Rosa, California. After thinking it over, Marty's father decides to purchase the doll for her birthday. At the register, the cashier gave them both weird vibes as she says to them, "You know, when you put your hand inside the doll, he is going to come alive." Laughing it off, Marty's father buys the doll and gives it to Marty. Marty's over the moon when she receives it. She was elated. She took such good care of this doll, she would always put it away in a cabinet at night so that nothing bad ever happened to the doll, like getting damaged. But very soon, strange things began to happen in the home. The doll's expression would often change. She would often be woken in the night, hearing pitter-patter of steps in the living room. One night, Marty heard the pitter-patter of the steps. She decides to go and investigate. She finds no one except her doll sitting on the couch. Another time, when Marty wasn't home, but her uncle was, the uncle states he heard his brother calling his name from the living room, even though he wasn't supposed to be home. When he went to see, the doll was sitting on the couch and no one else was there. Being a very religious family, they begin to think something is wrong with the doll and are very scared of it. Almost every family member experienced what the uncle had. They decided it was time to get rid of it. At first, Marty's parents wanted to burn the doll. They threw it on the barbecue grill, but according to Marty, it would not burn. The doll would not catch fire. With one failed attempt to get rid of the doll, they decided to cut the doll with scissors. But no matter how sharp, the scissors would not cut the doll. Not wanting to give in, they decided to throw it in the trash. But on trash day, when Marty's father went to the road to collect the can, he looked inside to make sure all the trash was taken, but the doll was still there. Foiled once again, they decided to dig a hole in the backyard and bury the doll. Then they filled it with concrete, and even though the family has long since moved away from the home, they are afraid that one day the doll will eventually find one of them and exact its revenge. Friends forever. Two 15-year-old girls named Alice and Sarah had been best friends since early childhood. They lived in the same neighborhood, attended the same school, and went to the same classes. They were inseparable. Even though they were best friends, they were two very different people. Alice was cheerful and outgoing, Sarah shy and quiet. One day, they're talking about their friendship. "Do you think we'll be best friends forever?" asked Alice. "I think so," replied Sarah. "Why wouldn't we?" I don't know. Sometimes, when people get older, they grow apart. I have an idea, said Sarah. Let's take a blood oath. A what? Asked Alice, surprised. A blood oath, said Sarah. Look, we both have to swear that we will be best friends forever. If we ever lose touch, we both swear that we will do everything we can to make sure we will be together forever. That's nonsense, Sarah, said Alice. We won't lose touch. We will always be together. But Sarah continued to insist, and with a mixture of amazement and amusement, Alice finally agreed to the proposal. Sarah found 2 needles and handed one to Alice. The girls took a piece of paper and wrote "Best Friends Forever" on the top, and then signed their names at the bottom. They lit a candle and heated the tips of the 2 needles in the flame. Taking their needles, both girls pricked their index finger and each smeared a drop of blood next to their signature. Their blood oath was now sealed. As the years passed, the girls grew up and left school. Alice went away to college in another city, while Sarah stayed in their home and got a job in a local store. Both of them got boyfriends and fell in love. The girls still kept in touch by phone, calling each other at least once a week. When Alice had completed her law degree, she got a good job and decided to get married. The couple bought a house and settled down. A few years later, they had a beautiful baby boy. Alice was so busy with her family that she rarely found time to call Sarah. It wasn't long before the phone calls stopped completely, and the friends lost touch with each other. Although Alice would sometimes still think about her best friend from her youth, she never took the trouble to pick up the phone and call her. In the end, life had led the 2 women down different paths, and they had not seen each other since they left school. One night, Alice had a horrible nightmare. She was driving along an endless highway when suddenly a truck in front of her began to swerve into her lane. The truck skidded and then collided with her car. She woke up suddenly, soaked in sweat. Just as she was trying to calm herself down, she heard her front doorbell ringing. She glanced at the clock by her bedside and realized it's 3 a.m. Her husband fast asleep on the other side of the bed. The doorbell's ringing again, insistently. Wondering who could be coming to visit at that time of night, Alice got up and went downstairs. When she opened the front door, she's shocked to see a woman standing on the porch. The woman is terribly pale, extremely haggard, and had a huge, bloody wound on her forehead. Although she had changed a lot, Alice recognized her immediately. It was her old friend Sarah. "Oh my God, Sarah, what happened?" she cried. Sarah just stared at her. "Come in, out of the rain," said Alice. "Are you hurt?" Sarah didn't move from where she was. "What's wrong, Sarah?" pleaded Alice. "Long time no see, Alice," hissed Sarah. "I've come to fulfill my promise. I've come to tell you I died." Alice was speechless. Sarah held up her hand and pointed at Alice with her index finger. "It's dripping blood." "Life has separated us," Sarah continued, "but we will be together in death. I'll be waiting." Alice fainted and collapsed on the ground. The next morning, when Alice woke up, she found that she was lying in bed next to her husband. She rubbed her eyes and wondered if the events of the night had all been just a dream. At breakfast, she turned on the television, and what she saw chilled her to the bone. The local newscaster was saying that the night before at 3 a.m., there had been a fatal traffic accident. A truck had collided with a car on the highway. The driver of the car had been killed on impact. The driver of the car was Sarah. From that moment on, Alice's life became a living hell. She barely ate a thing. She forgot to pick up her child from school, and when she went to work, she couldn't concentrate on her job. Every night, she had the same terrible dream. She would awake to the sound of the front doorbell ringing. She would open the door and find Sarah standing there, her bloody finger pointing straight at her. Each time she said the same thing. "I'll be waiting." Each morning, Alice awoke in a cold sweat. She would look down and her bedsheets would be streaked with blood. She would have pain in her finger and it would be covered in blood. Her husband did not understand what was happening. He took his wife to see a doctor and a psychiatrist, but neither of them could find any explanation. Alice's condition only grew worse, and in her nightmares, she began seeing Sarah standing at her bedside, pointing with her bloody finger. One night, the husband was awakened by a dreadful noise. It was the sound of breaking glass. He ran out to the bathroom and discovered the window was broken. Peering outside, he saw Alice lying on the sidewalk, her limbs askew. The horrified man rushed downstairs and out the front door. There was a pool of blood around his wife's head. Beside her on the pavement, someone had written in her blood, "Best friends forever." Thank you so much for joining me on Halloween. May the rest of your day be the spookiest. Don't forget, my friends, to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Join me next week for a new case on Unsolved Ramblings. Bye.